This year my workshop was centered in San Miguel, which is a beautiful place to be. Painters find a lot to enjoy, and they want to paint it, they want to draw it, beauty that they see around them. And I think if you're a plein air painter, you're a painter who paints out of doors, when the weather is warm, it beckons you outside, and it makes it all the more a joyful experience to take your paints out and try to record something that you see outside. On the first day, we talked about color triads, how to use them, how to mix them, how to express what we want to with color.
This is what I call the full spectrum triad, which in other words is the primary colors, the three primary colors. That's one triad. And then if I turn it, the template one turn clockwise, I have what I call the earth triad. This is the triad that I call the water triad. And this is the triad that I call the sun triad.
Color is very important to me. It's what originally led me to be a painter. And I loved, when I first started watercolor painting, using these beautiful pigments. And over time I discovered that if you add beautiful pigment on top of beautiful pigment, very often I ended up with a muddy mess. And I ended up disappointed with the results. So I discovered that if I really learned something about color theory and then simplified my palette to using triads of colors, that I was able to get very rich and expressive results and avoid the muddy messes that would so often plague me. So I think it's central to my teaching is to share this kind of learning that has helped my artwork so much. So this is what I was suggesting that you do, is pick out with a little pencil, it's a tiny little area of your triad circle, and say to, challenge yourself to then recreate that color by mixing on the palette. Over here, on another part of the paper. So I'm going to put some blue on the palette and put some of the red on the palette, and I see, that's just not quite there, is it? This is really more, along the red end of the spectrum. So then I just add a little bit more and a little bit more until I get, the color that I'm really looking for. And that's a lot closer, and so then I can just say, wow, that's the color I want, and feel like I had some success.
That's very helpful. Awesome.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Oh, I'm glad I showed it then. Yeah, because that's the whole idea of this, is that you're only working with three pigments, and very often you're mixing just the two together. And that's what I was teaching here, was just what can you do if you mix just two together? So that there's all this huge range of possibilities, but it makes the idea of replicating a color so much simpler. Because there's only probably two pigments that you have to deal with, but it's these fine little additions of color. It's just playing with the proportion of those two colors that makes this wide range. And so, I think that's a really good exercise to do.
It's amazing, just that little bit of paint on there turns out to be so pretty.
Right.
It's hard to believe it's magic. I'm very new to this.
Yeah.
It is magic.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad I showed that then, because I thought that was an excellent addition to the lesson.
On Tuesday, we created line and design watercolors and learned how to create grade colors for very nuanced color mixes. And it's totally playful. It's absolutely playful. There's no way that there's a wrong about it. The idea of playfulness carries with it the sense of taking risk. But it's like, if you're playful, it's okay to take a risk because you're willing to live with whatever that consequence is. On Wednesday, we went out into the countryside and visited a beautiful home, toured the gardens, did some painting and drawing, and then all together cooked a beautiful meal with a chef at our side teaching us every step, and then enjoyed a wonderful meal together.
So even though you may come up with, you know, the sky being red, because you just feel like making the sky red, if you're working within the framework of these three triadic colors, it may be unusual, but it won't be disharmonious from a chromatic color point of view. Nothing you do actually within a triad will look jarring. It just can't.
The next day, I taught my 4 steps to plein air painting, and we all painted beautiful scenes of the lovely bed and breakfast where we've all been staying.
Ay, después de quererla tanto, Diosito dame consuelo.
What we need to do is somehow make the complicated simple. And that's art. I mean, I think that's what art is all about.
On our last full day, we created Mexican nichos, a beautiful way to display small-scale watercolor paintings in a very personal way.
I learned an awful lot about watercolor, new techniques, great bunch of friends I've made here.
Dory is wonderful. She's caring, kind, giving.
I've had a fabulous time. This has been a dream come true, and I've absolutely enjoyed every single second. I can hardly wait to come back.
Such a great thing for someone who isn't an artist to be able to produce art.
It's just been great. This workshop has been nothing but pure joy, pure fun and creativity. I just can't tell you when I have had a more wonderful week.
The joy of teaching a workshop for me is gathering together a group of people with like interests and teaching projects that allow people of all levels to have success and enjoy themselves. And very shortly, a creative community evolves, and the feeling within the group is of sharing, and we each kind of learn from each other. And I hope it will reawaken for them the joy of what brought them to the love of art in the first place. If you've all looked at my website, then you know it's great. Great!